Okay, so this is one of the question I have to spend a little bit time. So IUPAC nomenclature. So last time I told you to find the priority order. So this time I will going to explain a little bit about naming and priority order. So simply when you are naming, you have to first identify the longest chain where the functional group is included. I told you. So this is directly from my note. Then you should name the substituent group in the first place in the alphabetical order. That is a general concept that you know. Okay. If you have similar charges like 2-methyl groups, 3-methyl groups, so you can use methyl. If you have one methyl, so dimethyl, trimethyls, like that. This is what it includes. And if you have any unsaturated compound, it should be included in the main chain as well. Then you finally write the active group. So this will be the part that is at the end of your IUPAC name. Okay, so this is the general rules. And remember, in your syllabus, normally you can see the maximum number of carbons. This is the way that they will give. Normally around 5, in either maybe 6, but it will not go more than the 5 or 6 in the main chain. Substituent can be different, but according to the syllabus, maximum will be 5 or 6 in the main chain, the number of carbons. Okay. So additional information about this, I have not come to the question yet. So additional information is the priority of groups, which I told you to look before. So in general, the priority order decreases like this. So ammonium plus NH4 plus will have the maximum priority when you're naming an organic compound. Then oic acid, then it's anion, then it will be about the ester, then you will have a halide, mostly COCl, COBr, like that. Then you will have amide, then cyanide, then aldehyde, ketone, and so on. Okay, so according to this, you can see the minimum priorities will be alkene and alkyne, and the maximum priority is mostly oic acid. Okay, so this is the trend. In this way, it increases. In this way, it decreases. So when you have two different multifunctional groups, then you need to decide which one will have the priority. For an example, this question, you can see, you have to first identify the longest chain. So if you think this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yes, this will be greater. And you can name like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But the problem in naming this way is that you will miss the OH. It is wrong because you have to include the functional group in it. So in principle, wait for a while. Yeah, in principle, you have to include the functional group. Then you have to in the main chain. So the main chain will be this. And the second thing is to find the priority. So you have 3 functional groups in the main chain. One is the alkyne, the other one is the carbonyl, the other one is alcohol. So if you know the priority group assignment, you can see we have, in fact, we have this, and we have the alkyne. So according to the priority order, you can see the ketone group will have the maximum priority. So according to that, ketone should be given the priority number, the lowest number. But if you check the ordering, this will be 1, this will be 2, this will be 3, this will be 4, and this will be 5. If you come from left to right. Okay. And at the same time, if you come from right hand to the left hand, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you can see if I start from left, it is the carbonyl carbon is 3. But if you start from the right hand side, still the carbonyl carbon is 3. So what to do next? The next thing that you have to do here is if the number priority of the most prominent group is same from either side, you have to check the unsaturated bonds. And then you have to give the minimum number to that priority. Okay. So in this case, you should understand the unsaturated bond is here. So more or less, you have to give number 1 to this. Okay. Because if you give number 1, your unsaturated will be 4 in the fourth carbon principle. But in case where you have the prominent group here, remember you have the prominent group here. In this case, please understand, you have to check the unsaturated bond in the sample. And this is this. And you have to give the lowest number for this. So according to that, this is a ketone. So it should end in an on form. And it is 1, 2, 3. So it should be 3 on. So there are 3 answers like that. This one, even this one. And then when you count the substituent group, there should be 5 hydroxy, then 4 methyl, then 1 alkyne wine. So in principle, if you check the answer number 4, you have 5 hydroxy. So only there is only 2 answers with hydroxy and 4 methyl. Yeah. So what about these 2? Which one is correct? Pent wine 1 wine 3 on or 1 wine 3 pentanone. So remember, I told you when you are naming your suffix, mostly should be at the end, but you should add the prefix at the front end. So when you just think about these 2, you can imagine this is very common. But when you add wine, you should know there cannot be E. Okay, that's the only difference that you have here. So understand the difference between these 2. So in principle, these are the rules that you should maintain, and these are the priority assignments that you should know. So other than that, I told you in the previous class, check the groups where you give number 1 always. So these are the set of groups that you should give number 1 always. The oic acid, it's anion. In the ester, you separately name the alkyl part and the carboxylic part, alcohol part and carboxylic part. Then oil halides, then amides, aldehydes, and cyanides. And all these you have to give number 1. If you have a group in the priority range. But let's say you have something like this. Take the board, okay? So please write down this. In fact, it will be a question for you. So I will write down like this. Okay, so this is one of my favorite questions. Okay, so please write down these 2 structures and try to identify the main chain and try to name them and try to write down the IUPAC name at the end. Okay, but remember the point. Here you have 1, 2, 3 functional groups where the priority is higher for this one. Okay, so this should be given number 1, but at the same time, remember the longest carbon chain is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and here in the 5th carbon, the the carbonyl carbon appears in the main chain. Okay, but here the longest carbon will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. That's the thing that you need to know. Okay, think about that little bit. Okay, and if I put another functional group here, what might happen? Okay, the idea here that I want to give you here is, if I have we will say a prominent functional group than aldehyde. For an example, in this we will say we have a cyanide for an example. Okay, this is a cyanide group. Okay, then if you check for the longest carbon chain, you have to select not this one, this one. Why? Because the priority for this is greater than this. So in that case, your main chain will be this. But here, your main chain will be still this. And you have to name 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No problem in that. The problem here is, see the difference. The carbonyl carbon here appears in the main chain. Okay, but here the carbonyl carbon appears as a substituent. These two cases are different. Where in this case, even though this carbonyl is a substituent, like a substituent, it appears in the main chain, you have to name this one as on when you're naming it as a substituent. But here, when you come to this one, it is away from the main chain as a substituent. In this case, you have to name this as formyl. Okay, identify the difference. Please write down these two structures and then try to see the difference. That is the point that I have to tell you, because this is a type that we see in one of the MCQs in past papers, where we they have used the carbonyl carbon one in the main chain, and they have asked the IUPAC name. In that case, you should be able to identify the carbonyl carbon in the main chain, as well as you need to identify when naming with this carboxylic acid priority group. You have to use, if that is in the main chain, you have to use on. If that is not in the main chain, it should be named the normal way, like formyl. Okay. So that is one important concept that you should know. And it will be same if this carbonyl carbon is here, because if this carbonyl carbon is here instead of here, it will be automatically on, because the carbonyl carbon becomes now a ketone, not an aldehyde. The problem comes here, because here this is an aldehyde, and in that case, normally you will use like formyl because you think it is a substituent. Yeah, it's a substituent. But remember, when it is in the main chain, you cannot name that as a formyl. You should name that as on. So again, I will share my screen. So that is one concept that you guys should know.